You've written a very powerful piece, Mr. Wade, saying that the theory that the COVID virus escaped from a lab in Wuhan may not be far-fetched. Now, this is in stark contrast to what we have been given to understand so far about the virus, that it emerged from a wet market in Wuhan, China. Tell us why you think it is possibly a man-made virus.
Well, there are two possibilities on the table, and both of them are quite plausible. So the first is that it came naturally from an animal, probably a bat, to humans. And that's plausible because we've already had two epidemics that came from these bats in China, the SARS one of 2002 and the MERS of 2012. But the other explanation, which is also plausible, is that the virus came from the lab in Wuhan, which happens to be China's leading center of research on coronaviruses. And where did the pandemic start? Right in the city of Wuhan. So it's an obvious possibility that certainly cannot be dismissed out of hand that the virus may have escaped from research being done at the lab. So we have these two possibilities. It's important to note there's no direct evidence for either. But if we look at the available evidence and say, well, which of these two theories explains the evidence better? In my view, the lab escape theory explains all the evidence very easily and is therefore the more probable.
Okay, so you're saying that the lab escape is more probable. Why do you feel that a lab escape theory? And again, when you say a lab escape, you're referring to it as an accident, probably, by the Chinese scientists who were working on that virus there inside the lab. So let's break it down, sir, for the benefit of our viewers. Why do you feel that the lab escape theory is more plausible than the natural evolution theory?
Well, the first piece of evidence we should look at is simply the one of geography. For the natural emergence theory to be true, you have to have the pandemic breaking out somewhere outside Wuhan, and for the infected person or family to jump on a train to Wuhan, maybe without infecting anyone in their a local town or family, without infecting anyone on the train until they get to Wuhan, and there the epidemic breaks out. Well, if that had happened, it should be possible for us to see many traces of the pandemic outside of Wuhan before it got to Wuhan. On the lab escape theory, well, it's easy. As we have just said, the leading lab for coronavirus research is right there in the center of Wuhan, and that's where the epidemic broke out. So that's the first piece of evidence, which I think is very indicative. The second is that right from the start, this virus was very well adapted to human cells. So this is peculiar because if you look at the SARS-1 epidemic, we could see the virus taking a long time to perfect its powers as a pathogen. It gathered mutations. This is the way evolution works, one by one until it got stronger and stronger. And after it had got about 30 mutations, then it was a really good human pathogen. If you go to the SARS-2 expecting the same process, there's nothing. Right from the start, the virus is very well adapted to attack human cells. So this is hard to explain on the natural emergence theory. On lab escape, it's easy. We know that Dr. Zhengli Shi, the chief Chinese scientist, was growing her viruses in what is called humanized mice. So these are mice that are genetically engineered to carry human-type cells in their airways. So if she was training the viruses on these human-type cells, of course, they would be immediately able to attack humans.
So, and I will come to that a little later, the fact that it, how it immediately attacked humans instead of evolving over a period of time to be able to attack humans at such an intense breakneck speed. But let's talk about what you said earlier. I didn't want to interrupt you. The fact about the fingerprint of the virus. Now, the intermediary host of that virus has not been identified as yet by China, by WHO, or by anybody else. Now, for our viewers, let me just explain that the natural origin of the virus argument, it basically supposes that the virus jumped from bats to an intermediary host, which is possibly another animal, and then to humans. Presumably, after months of intensive research, Chinese researchers have failed to find either the original bat population or the intermediate species to which SARS-2 might have jumped, or any evidence to suggest that China had been exposed to the virus before December 2019. Would you like to explain, sir, to our viewers, what is the significance of this fingerprint not being available till now?
Well, I think it's very significant because in the case of SARS-1, we had found the intermediate host animal within 3 months. And in the case of MERS, I think it was within 7 months. So now we've gone some 15 months and there is not a trace of SARS-CoV-2 in the environment. This became evident in February when the World Health Organization sent an inquiry group to Beijing. Now, this seemed at first to be a propaganda victory for the Chinese version of events because the committee said, oh, lab escapes very unlikely. We're not going to spend much time on that. Natural emergence is much more likely explanation. And yet what was clear was that the Chinese did not have a shred of evidence to offer to the Commission that there had been a natural emergence of the virus. As you've just said, the Chinese could not find the intermediate host animal. They could not find any human population in which the epidemic, the virus might have gathered strength, and they could not find the bat population from which the virus originally came. So as each month goes by, with no evidence at all for natural emergence, however plausible that theory seemed to begin with, it becomes less and less plausible each passing month.